Hey folks, please join our great community at rivianstories.com to get all the latest updates, pics, and videos from Rivian owners and fans. We also have t-shirts, hats, and gear guides for your next adventure. Hope to see you there.
We are very pleased to be joined again by Kyle Connor with Out of Spec. And actually, before we get started, while we were talking, before we started the recording, you just had a package come.
Yes, just had a package.
Let's open it up.
Cool. Well, this is kind of fun. So Out of Spec Reviews, which is where a lot of our Rivian content has been posted so far, hit 100,000 subscribers a couple weeks ago. And YouTube
That's awesome.
sent the silver plaque thing. So let's open it up together. This is where I need that cool iPhone thing that does like the overhead view. And I'm using a knife totally improperly, so don't do what I do. Okay, so let's get this thing opened. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Boom! It's foam. Hold on. So we get a nice foam kit, and then inside this letter, it says, "Congratulations on your subscriber milestone."
That's
Here's
awesome.
a nice YouTube on some really nice paper from Susan, can't even pronounce her last name, CEO of YouTube. And then, whoa, here we go. Oh, this thing's legit. 100,000
awesome.
subs.
Very
Sounds
nice.
Very cool.
Sweet.
Congrats, Kyle. That's awesome.
Yeah,
to you and your team.
congratulations.
Yeah, the whole team. That's fantastic.
Yep. Everyone worked hard for that one. But the thing is, we always say subscribers don't matter. It's all about the views. And so I don't know why we're celebrating this, but I'm pumped. I think it's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
You know what? Subscribers matter too, and maybe in about 10 years, Rivian Stories might hit that 100K mark. You never know.
I think a lot sooner than that. Have you seen how many people are interested in Rivian stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, now that more of them are hitting the streets and people are not only seeing them, but really starting to learn more about them and Google them even, I feel like there is absolutely going to be a wave of Rivian momentum. And
Totally agree.
And speaking of, so you've owned your truck for a while now, and I know that you probably have some great experiences to share, especially within the perspective of your quite extensive EV knowledge. So let's start there, man. How has it been owning the Rivian, and what are some of the cool things that you've learned, or just overall impressions?
Yeah, well, so we got the truck with not much waiting time and pissed a lot of the community off with this, I think, to be totally transparent. But, if it was, I think we should touch on that because a lot of that story was never actually really shared early on. And now we're starting to see people get their trucks sooner with the gear shop and being able to swap into available configurations. That's basically what we did early on. So I have a friend who works at Rivian, and, much to the communications team demise, they did not want to get us a truck early, but I'm like, hey, I have a friend, and I know like everyone else that I know got their truck early. So I'm like, I'm going to email this guy and see if he can get us a truck. Like, we need to make videos. And he's like, oh, no problem. Sent it through, and a guide called the next day. I'm like, that, you just need to know someone there? Like, that honestly seems pretty sketchy. From my perspective, I would hope that they would honor you order here, you get your truck here. But if that's not the way it's going to go, which it isn't the way it was going, then we'll take advantage and get our truck. And that's exactly what we did. And even crazier than that, I think in full transparency, my guide was saying if we found a launch edition, at least at the time, I don't know what it is today, it would be at the earlier pricing. And so, Skylar, you helped me figure out the specification. We originally were talking about a yellow on Forest Edge truck, and we were like, okay, it's a good YouTube color. I'm not sure I would want to live with it every day. And eventually, we thought about it for a few hours, called back and said, I'll take that truck. And it was at normal. I'm like, I'll go for it. And they said, sorry, it's actually already taken. We have no trucks available. You'll just have to wait. And my white on Forest Edge with 22-inch sport wheels and no off-road kit, which is like everything I didn't want in one truck, came up, and it was the only one. And I said, okay, well, let's just do it. And, you know, we bought this truck to do road trips, to do off-roading, to do towing. And white is not a good color for YouTube. I like it personally. I actually really love the white color, but it doesn't show up on camera that well. And the 22-inch sport wheels and no off-road skid plate, I was like, oh my God, like this is everything we don't want. But I guess it'll leave room for modifications. And like, how much could I complain? Like, we're getting a Rivian. Let's just go for it. And it's been an incredible ownership experience. From the time we took delivery up until now, it's been a really, really useful truck. Just having a vehicle to throw things in the back of. I've never owned a pickup truck before, and I don't think I could live without one now. And
wow.
Towing with it, you know, the amount of towing that I've done with this truck is pretty insane. There's almost always a trailer on the back of it, and we're just hauling around broken cars everywhere. So it's become a very useful tool. I think we said when we got it, we were really lucky to get the truck at the early pricing early on. We are not flippers. I'm not here to buy it and sell it, right? It's something I'm going to keep. And if we do ever decide to sell it, it would just be to one of my colleagues or to a family member. But it's always going to stay within the out-of-spec bubble until we end up blowing it up or it gets crashed. So, you know, the thing's going to stick around with us. It wasn't a buy and flip situation. And I hope we've been able to provide some content with it to ease the pain of people that we skipped in line, even though the truck was available and was going to go to someone that was available anyway. In terms of reliability, so I guess we should talk first really quick. It's got 8,000 miles on it now, maybe closer to 9. I have not put most of the miles on it. We actually let a lot of friends and journalists in the Colorado area borrow it for the last couple months. And that's so awesome. They've been making videos and experiencing the truck. And, you know, at the end of the day, I think Rivian is very selective with the media that they work with, and that's on them to control their messaging. And, you know, I'm not going to get involved. I was lucky we were selected as, you know, an organization to get to review the truck early on and spend a lot of time with it and do all the stuff. But a lot of the smaller outlets weren't able to do that. So, you know, when I'm gone and not using the truck, the whole goal is to keep the wheels turning, get content coming in, and, you know, really try to have people experience it. And I think everyone's been pleased.
No, that's awesome. And to rewind back to something that you said, just because I think this is hilarious, but that exterior Compass yellow with the Forest Edge interior on the interwebs has become known affectionately as spinach omelet. So anyway,
that's great. It's a rough combo, to be honest.
I love it. I'm not gonna lie to you. I love it. I mean, that was the first truck that the three of us drove when Rivian flew us out to Normal, complete with cam kitchen, and it's just odd enough that it's right.
Well, and I thought that combo would be atrocious in person, but when you actually get in it, I mean, it works, I think. Yeah. And
I think it would be great for YouTube.
Fun fact about that, we actually had the opportunity to talk to RJ for just a couple of minutes when we were there in Normal, and we brought up that truck, and he said, we were thinking about, you know, blacklisting one combo, and it was that combo, but they didn't. Yep. And on the Forest Edge, your truck has the Forest Edge interior. What do you think after living with it for a while? How do you like it?
Well, you've also driven my truck and spent some time with it, so from my impression is when I saw photos of it in the configurator, I had seen it in person at one of the first mile drives as well as at the California hub. I thought, okay, not crazy about it. For some reason, I was imagining a darker green. But when I was talking to my guide and they said this is the only available configuration, I was just like, we just need a truck, and you know what, I'm going to order a max pack anyway with all the stuff I want as a personal vehicle. So let's just go for it. And I think I would actually order the interior again. I like it so much. They really did a nice job with this. I think my only issue with the whole interior is the green headliner. I wish that was black. But it's such a dark shade of green, it doesn't even matter. It's a really nice interior, and I prefer it to the black.
Interesting.
No, that's awesome. And I kind of had the same impression of the headliner, by the way, because I feel like the green hue comes out a little bit more in the headliner than it does in the seats, at least in most lighting conditions. And yeah, but no, I think the wood is beautiful, and the vegan leather color is gorgeous, and to me it is gray with a hint of green. I wouldn't call it a green leather.
I totally agree, and if it was explained to me and if I remembered it in that way, that would have been my preference. I'm glad we got it. And speaking of the seat material, one thing I'm really conscious of in cars is the side bolster wearing over time, getting in and out of it, and I hop into the truck to try and avoid wear, but I'm driving it the least out of anyone. I'm watching people slide into this thing and put their weight and sit on the side of the seat, and it hurts me a little bit, but when I go and look back, it hasn't had one little crease in that seat. It seems like they really spec'd the right material, the right seat cushioning to hold up long term. I really think this interior is going to last.
That's awesome.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I'm always curious about how the underlying foam and the seat covering holds up on the bolsters, because that's a common issue in a lot of vehicles. So yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of keep an eye on that. And I'm curious about more of the towing that you've been doing as well, because when I came to visit up there in Colorado, we did max payload testing. Actually went with you to buy the out-of-spec trailer and get the weight distribution hitch set up and all those things. So what all have you been towing? And granted, I have seen a couple of recent videos about some of the mishaps with the out-of-spec fleet, so I'm sure that has something to do with it, but I'd love to hear more about your towing experiences.
Yeah, well, since getting a trailer, it's just like, wow, we can move stuff around. And so can't thank you enough for coming up and helping us select the trailer. And actually, we had quite a bit of debate when we were buying this trailer. Do we get the short one or the long one? And actually, I've put a tip-to-tip load on this trailer. So I'm really glad we got the 24-foot long boy, because, I can load the e-tron and the smart car on there and tow that behind the Rivian. And it's just maxing everything out. Maybe a little bit over by a couple 100 pounds, but it works. And so the trailer's working out really well. When you hook it up to the Rivian, you literally cannot feel anything behind you. It's crazy. It is just the most insane tow vehicle. And I've done a lot of F-150 Lightning versus Rivian towing over long distance. And even this week, I did a comparison with a 30-foot Airstream trailer, a big boy Airstream. Thing weighs 8,500 pounds or so, and I did a F-150 Lightning versus Rivian. And unfortunately, that video won't go up because we hit some weather in the Rivian that made the test, sort of irrelevant. We have to redo it, and we ran out of time. But the Rivian tows so much better than the Lightning. So much better, in my impression, just suspension-wise. So good.
I agree. It's just so solid. It's planted. The back of the Rivian does not squat, and I guess that's due to the air suspension compensating, but yeah, Rivian is rock solid towing wise. I'm curious how the R1S will do. I mean, it does not have... I assume so. I mean, it does not have the same towing capacity and trailer tongue weight capacity. And also, towing with a shorter wheelbase vehicle has some disadvantages as well with regards to stability. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I've got a couple things in mind to put my R1S through the paces once I get it.
can't wait to see your R1S. It's going to be awesome. And, you know, just in terms of the truck's daily usability and everything that we said during the review phase, sometimes it's nice to live with a vehicle after I spend a week with it reviewing it, because it either shows, okay, more time means different feelings will happen, which happens often with cars, where I spend a short period of time and then I end up having it for 2 weeks or a month afterwards, and I'm like, okay, kind of the excitement's died out and it's really not good in these areas. Nothing has popped up with the Rivian that's made me go, maybe I should have tempered my excitement in the reviews that I did with it, because it's just living up to everything that I thought it was after spending a week with it, and more, because with software updates, we now have pet comfort. We now have much better drivetrain control with software updates. For example, I remember in the review truck, I pulled out of my neighborhood. I have this big left-hand turn pulling out of my neighborhood, and I always just do a big drift pulling out, and there's just the line of skid marks. You know, especially if no one's around, it's midnight, whatever. And I remember in the review truck, I had it loaded up in sport mode, lowest suspension, stability control off, and just spun the inside tires. And it was just like, oh, I don't like 4 motors because it's not doing anything on the outside. And then the other day I got in the Rivian, because I've been away for the last month and a half, 2 months in Europe, and jumped in this after a few updates and did the same thing. And I was like full sideways, big cloud of smoke behind me. It was awesome. I'm like, okay, they're working on this.
Yeah. What's your biggest, I guess, surprise so far with the truck that maybe the review truck didn't have that you now have with the vehicle, or that maybe you didn't realize altogether until you've got your own truck?
Yeah, well, I think it's actually the way that I'm using the truck. I think it's a tool that was needed, and it's the right tool for the job. I think a lot of people buy Rivians as daily drivers and may not hook up a whole bunch of stuff to it, and that's fine. And that's what I thought I was going to do. I'm like, this is a lifestyle truck. I'm going to go take it on dirt roads once in a while. But I've actually been using it as a truck. I have wheels and tires in the back. We did lawn work the other day. All the junk was in the back of it, you know, towing constantly. And so I didn't know I needed this tool as badly as I did. And it's really transformed the way that we're able to make videos from a filming perspective, and just from an efficiency perspective of moving stuff around. It makes life so much better. But I guess we can say that for any pickup truck. It's basically, it's our work truck, and it's doing great. And but one thing I think we need to touch on is the reliability and sort of the how things feel like they're going to last. Because my impression is, like, I don't know if you guys have driven like a 2013 Model S, or like a really early 2012, 2013 Model S. They're all creaky and rattly now. I think this truck's going to feel like that over time, to be honest.
That and what makes you say that? Like interior, drivetrain?
Yeah, just it's starting to feel looser. And so, like, my charge port totally came off its mounts, and I have to manually open and close the charge port now. So that's a rough one. And so, like, sometimes the button doesn't work, and then I can twist it to get back on the mount, and then it works, but it stops like an inch out of the truck, and I have to jam it closed. So that's a weird issue. The half shafts are clunking. We noticed this on the review truck as well, but it's getting way worse. And it's to the point where I can now rock the motors, and it just sounds like things are going to fall apart underneath the truck. And now I'm hearing this squeak. I don't know if it's necessarily from the suspension or from the half shafts, but every time I'm in the Starbucks drive-thru, which anyone who watches my videos knows is sometimes twice a day, too much. And but I'm inching up, and it's kind of embarrassing. I'm rolling up to the window, and you hear as I'm just inching the truck up there, and so that's crazy. The tonneau cover is on. I'm surprised it's still working, but it's barely working. And yeah, so one of the speaker grills is rattling above my head. You know how they have the spatial audio thing, and I can hear a rattle from the speaker above. And now that I'm thinking about this, I submitted a ticket for service, and I forgot to mention the tonneau cover and the speaker thing. So I'll add that to my list. But yes, it feels like an early product that, like, the second revision of parts will make it last a bit longer.
Interesting.
Yeah, and you know what? The half shaft issue I feel like is a somewhat common one, Kyle, and also that creaking is apparently something that Rivian has identified, but they have not figured out the fix. It has to do with a specific suspension bolt and torque, and they've tried to, anyway, I don't know all the details on that one, but I feel like it might be a half shaft CV joint quality control issue that hopefully they're able to address in the trucks that have that issue.
Totally agree. That's my understanding as well, is like you can bring it in, they'll try and grease some things and maybe tighten it, but it's going to keep popping up until they come up with a revision, is at least my understanding. But I figured, it's got to go in for a few things. Maybe after this first round of service, we're done. We're good. I've had that with a couple early Teslas where they just always needed to go in one time for stuff, little alignments, whatever, and then had a solid ownership experience. So I'm really thinking, the big components, the battery pack, by the way, new DC charging profile in this new software update. I'll have a video out soon on that. Much more stable. The motors seem pretty stable. I think the big stuff's all good. It's just little itty things here and there.
We talked about this in the backers chat, or excuse me, the investor call that was on Thursday last week. The service, it's the little things right now that I think are really, I don't want to say plaguing Rivian, but it's definitely a backlog of service related items that are all very small in nature, nothing huge, but I'm on my I just got the truck back from its second brick and mortar service visit, and 3 out of the 4 things were all repeats. And again, all small things like the wind noise from the passenger side, the passenger seat recall, which is it's on its 3rd seat now, and the bed opening. The tailgate does not want to drop when you hit the button. Now everything's good.
Mine doesn't either. I didn't know that was an issue, so maybe I should add that. Okay.
Yeah, it's getting hung. Yeah, it's slightly misaligned. It's going to be a small adjustment, and it's catching on probably your passenger side latch, if I had to guess.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, because sometimes I got to hit it a couple times. Same with the side doors. It's like the buttons don't respond, and you got to jam them down. Also, I don't know. Maybe I'm going on a rant. I really think the truck's great. I really love it. But the key sucks. I don't know who came up with this Bluetooth key idea, but what in the world's going on with that?
That's probably my biggest thing that I dislike with the truck. I don't want to use the word hate. I dislike it a lot, simply because it's not very good unless you're looking at it. Like because it's concave on both ends, or convex.
Upside down.
Right, it's upside down because it's meant to be. Nobody puts 14 people out of all the owners actually put the key on their belt loop. Nobody else does that except for Skyler. He'll be number 15.
But I will not.
That's how you spot a Rivian nerd in the crowd. You're like, okay, got it.
Got it.
No, put it in your pocket. You don't need to flaunt it.
But because it's upside down, because both sides have the same overall shape, it's really hard to lose where you're at on the key fob.
Right, you need to physically look, and I've been trying to train myself because there is a little bit of a bump on one of them, but I can't remember if it's unlock or lock, but I'm getting there. Another couple weeks, I'll remember. But sometimes I have to hit the button like 7 times to get the truck.
Oh, yeah.
And like even today, I preconditioned it, which, by the way, it won't precondition if you leave climate control off. It's not smart enough to turn climate back on. No, which is because I usually... I'm always moving cars around to try and squeeze them out of their spaces, and I hate AC compressors starting up and then shutting right off. So I usually shut climate off when I'm done with a drive, in case I have to pull another car out and pull one in. I don't want it to basically, like with a Tesla, you get a whole bunch of smelly stuff in there. It's just not good for the system to get cycled shortly. And so I can't basically precondition my Rivian if it's in the driveway. And so today I preconditioned it, and then I walked up to it with the key in my pocket, and the handles wouldn't open. And I'm like, okay, and I had to hit unlock 6 times for it to recognize.
Yeah, no, I agree, especially with the key fob being Bluetooth as opposed to a longer range RF. And somebody out there needs to aftermarket sell an entire key fob case mod, in my opinion. And, you know, carabiner or not, but something with the tactile buttons to where you can tell just by feel which button your finger is on. And but it's one of those things.
These are all little things.
That's true. This problem has been solved sufficiently a long time ago. And, you know, I think it's an example of a new company trying to get a little too fancy, or just trying to make use of common components. So, hey, we want to use phone as key. Let's make our regular key Bluetooth as well. So something like that. But
that's probably what it is. Yeah, but again, it's like, okay, key doesn't work. What other truck are you going to buy that has a better key that can do what this thing can do? You know what I mean? It's like there's for what this truck can do, there is no competition. It is the only vehicle that can do what it can do. So we just got to live with the little things.
Right, and that's why I carry, obviously everybody carries their phone on them, and then I carry the key card just in case my phone dies or I lose my phone for whatever reason.
I'm sure I have mine too somewhere.
I always have a key card, and I would show my key card, but my truck is at the detailer's getting some PPF.
Rivian key card, always have it on you. So,
always.
What's the deal with this Rivian XPEL situation? Because it seems like an insane deal for $4,500 to do a full stealth wrap.
It is. And to just kind of give the summary of that, so XPEL already had pre-cut templates for the Rivian, but this OEM program has different templates where they will actually, the templates were made to where they can wrap every edge except for when something has to be disassembled. So the standard pre-cuts also cut out around the emblems, but the Rivian OEM is designed to take the emblems off and then put them back on. And in the short term, XPEL dealers have access to those Rivian OEM templates, but that will eventually be delivered from an XPEL an XPEL facility either in or around the factory. So that will be truly a factory option.
That's pretty cool. I think maybe we should explore doing this with our truck, getting a stealth situation done on it, and then we definitely want to do some colored wrap of some kind. I think, definitely enjoyed the truck. We'll have 10,000 miles of it stock basically, but now it's time to start the fun stuff. Thing needs a winch, thing needs skid plates, thing needs some off-road wheels and tires. We got to get the tent on the back. I want the camp kitchen so bad. So we need to really start having some fun here. And the thing is, the aftermarket seemingly going at a snail's pace with this market. I expected products so much faster than what we're seeing at the moment. And that's also based off of my conversations with viewers and people that are like, we're starting a Rivian off-road company and we're going to make all this stuff. It's like, I haven't seen anything yet. Let's see some stuff.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we've seen like a Molly panel for the forward edge of the bed from a company. But yeah, I mean, wheels from another company. That I cannot. And not your buddy Kyle, but somebody, I can't remember. I'm not gonna lie, I can't remember the name of the wheels. to save my life
Right, but
right
I
now.
saw there were wheels available for it.
Right. Oh yeah. So aftermarket wheels. There's a couple other things, but you're right. I mean, there's very little aftermarket, and I don't know if it's just a case of 2020 bleed over and supply chain.
Certainly doesn't help.
Or what? But yeah, it definitely is a lot slower than I thought.
Yeah, I think we need to solve this.
I agree. I mean, I think there is a market right now. It is a limited market, though, and I think that's part of the challenge as well. Is that we're in the single-digit thousands of these that have been delivered to customers, and granted, that's going to ramp up significantly over time, but it is still a fairly limited market. And if you think any given product, what percentage of the Rivian market is that addressable to? It may not be huge numbers.
I think it's a very high percentage of Rivian owners compared with any other automaker that would go for accessories for their truck, because everyone who has one now is involved with it, right? They've been pre-order holders, they've been watching Rivian Stories, they've been looking at everything. They're engaged. It's not like you can just walk up to a Rivian store and drive one home. And so I think at least 10% of Rivians will probably have some sort of aftermarket modification, or someone's interested in doing that, which is a huge, I mean, that's 1,000 trucks basically. And that's a market to sell stuff.
Right. Oh man, Kyle, since we've had our truck, rooftop tent, 3 12-volt fridges. The only reason it's 3 is because one broke. One arrived DOA.
Yeah.
Gear for camping out the wazoo. We went camping every weekend last month, and in between camping trips, it looked like REI threw up in our living room because we were constantly we'd pull the stuff out just to clean the truck out, just to reorganize, resupply, just to put it back in on the upcoming Friday before we did it all again for the next 2 or 3 days.
It's so cool that the truck is, my whole thing with cars, this truck isn't what got me into cars. I'm a car enthusiast forever, but I've always believed in do what the car's intended to do. And so when you have a GT3 RS, you go to the racetrack every weekend and you use it for what it's intended for. And when you have a Rivian, you go out in the woods and you go camping. And that is what the truck is optimized for. It's small enough to take on trails. It's got power. It's got you got a big ass battery to run everything. It's really awesome. Plus, the truck just looks really good in photos out in scenery. So if you're trying to build an Instagram page, that's the way to do it. It's really a freaking awesome vehicle. So I'm glad you're using it for its intended purpose.
Yeah,
so Kyle, that leads me to a couple of questions that I wanted to get your impressions on. So
sure.
One is, and these are both off-road related, but one has to do with your experience on the 22-inch wheels off-road. And then the second part of the question is, you talked about how some of the on-road driving dynamics have been updated by Rivian, and I think you've even mentioned before that you've noticed some changes off-road as well, and I'd love to hear about those.
Yeah, so the 22s, I think I've received a lot of messages over the last few months of people that I think they're like, I want the 22s, or I found a truck in this online thing that has the 22s, but I plan to do some off-roading. I think they're fine. I think you'll be able to do everything you need to do with them. My whole viewpoint is, even if we scratch them up, it's not the wheels we're going to keep on it anyway, so just use it. But we haven't scratched them up. We've had wheels in the air. We've been on rocky terrain. I have dropped some pressure out of them, probably not as much as I would with the 20s, just because we're working with a lot less sidewall here. But I would say, we've done some of the most aggressive trails in the Colorado area here on the 22s, on the front range, which is probably more than most would ever do outside of Colorado or Utah. and really hasn't been an issue at all. What you do get with the 20s though are the all-terrain tires, which would be very helpful. And so just from a grip in a loose weather condition, mud, snow, slush, these are not the correct tires to have. So I'm glad we got the 22s, because when I drive it on a back road and you start shredding it around, it's like, oh, okay, great. But honestly, how I drive the truck 99% of the time is just all-purpose, suspension in soft, regen on high, and it's so freaking cushy. And I swear they've updated it recently since I was away in Europe to be even softer. It rides like so nice now.
I've heard that they updated the damping programming.
Oh, good. Okay, so I'm not going crazy, because I'm like, wow, this is like smoother than our e-tron. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, that's amazing.
Yeah, they did a really good job. And then, so I wouldn't be afraid of the 22s for like 99% of people. If you're going to really be doing hardcore off-roading, sure, 20s. But I think Rivian told me those will be available in the gear shop soon, or at least from service. I don't know what soon means, but at some point. Because
we know
that's exactly what it means, is at some point, yes.
So eventually, maybe. And I think there'll be plenty of aftermarket stuff out there. So I would say get the truck that gets you the truck the quickest, enjoy it, and you'll find that the wheels are not going to stop you from doing anything. If you have the 20s and you want to go take it up a back road, you're going to be just fine. If you have 22s and you want to do some trails, you're going to be just fine.
Yeah. So what about off-road traction, though? Have you seen that improve? I know that in some of your early off-roading videos, you were like, gosh, just a simple locker, would be so good. But I'm curious to see if you've seen any changes there.
So haven't actually gone wheeling on the newest software update yet. We're going in a couple days, so I'll update you then. But my impression, since we talked about a lot of those things, is better. It was better, at least, and I'm sure it's gotten better since then. But it's still, like, there's no way you can replace a mechanical locker. I don't think. I mean, you can get software as good as you want. There's nothing you can do. But maybe they've worked some magic. I don't know. Definitely they've played around with drivetrain tuning for street use. And so looking forward to getting it out on the trails probably this weekend. Maybe we'll get some Rivian owners together and hit up some trails. There's so many of them in Colorado now.
Oh, yeah. No, Denver was one of the first service centers that was fully open. And obviously Colorado, I think, was the third biggest market of reservation holders. Yeah. Something like that.
And we had the first Rivian Adventure Network charger, which maybe we should geek out about if you guys are interested in some of the behind-the-scenes working of that. I don't know how much you've spoken about it yet.
Well, we haven't really talked about it. And matter of fact, I learned more from your video about the Salida grand opening with regards to how it works, impressive. So,
I'll give you the Kyle Connor quick synopsis, so strap in for an hour. Basically, the way it works is you have one power cabinet that can feed up to 3 posts. And so
my kids are home, sorry.
You're fine. So basically, one power cabinet feeds 3 posts, but I think their preference is actually to only have it feed 2 posts. So I think at the majority of installs, you'll have one cabinet, 2 posts, and that's very similar to Tesla Supercharger version 2. And the maximum amperage output is 750 amps. That can be shared across both of those posts. Now, we all know the Rivian requests 500 amps, which is the maximum technically for CCS, but that can go higher soon without much hardship. And so if you have 2 trucks there, you're not going to get the 220 kilowatt peak. You'll get 150 kilowatt peak. But if you're there and another truck's not really pulling much, sure, you can get everything there. So it's going to do dynamic load sharing, but it's not going to give priority to the first person plugged in, which is something Tesla Superchargers used to do, and they don't anymore. Now it's all force split. If you have 3 cabinets or 3 dispensers hooked up to one cabinet, you can have maximum 100 kilowatts each, or if one truck's ramped down, it will share the rest across the others. the thing with DC charging is it's not just totally variable. It's not infinite control. The reason is you need to match the battery pack's voltage on that particular truck. And so there's bricks inside of these cabinets. They're 35 kilowatt bricks, I think. I said in the video, I don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure they're 30 or 35 kilowatt bricks. So you'll be able to go in stages of roughly 30 kilowatts, 35 kilowatts of power sharing. And that's really only because these onboard, or the chargers, the actual AC to DC conversion, needs to be at pack voltage, locked in, and then it can dump the current. So that's interesting, and I think it's probably the right solution for cost, because you're going to be utilizing more of the installed charging conversion power than a typical Electrify America install, which is one charger, one dispenser. But at least with an Electrify America or some EVgo installations, you know that you can get everything. If you find a 350 kilowatt charger, you know you're going to get it all. When you go to a Rivian Adventure Network site, you may not. But I think that's okay for now, at least, and they can change their strategy at future installs down the line. They do have plug-in charge. They're not using ISO 15118, which is what everyone else uses. They use their own proprietary communication, which is pretty cool. And it's free charging, I think, at least for now, until the end of the year. And I think their intention is to open it up to the public. And I think they're just working on all the bugs, making sure it all works when they have full access to the trucks and the charger, vertically integrated, work out all the bugs, and then open it up, would be my guess, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, early on it was pitched as being a Rivian-specific network, kind of like, the Tesla supercharger network. But I think with all of this federal funding to back public charging, I feel like it's the right thing to do for the EV community as a whole to open it up, and would also be a smart financial move for Rivian, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think at the minute they were to say it's only open to Rivian is the minute that the federal government says, and then they lose out on whatever funds are available to them, they would lose out on that.
So wait, was that a thumbs up, Jimmy, or a thumb somewhere else?
Correct, a thumbs up. Go on your own. Rivian would have to go on their own if they turn their nose up to federal money.
Yep.
Yeah, and opening it up. Yep.
And it might end up being the best solution for them. Who knows, really? I don't know if I've formulated my opinion. I think in Europe it works that everything is open. At least all Teslas have CCS plugs. All cars can use the supercharger network, at least at select sites. And it works. It works really well. People don't get upset when you're charging at a ENB base station and a Tesla rolls up. So, we'll see how this all unfolds. But the hardware itself is really high quality, in my opinion. I met some of the engineers that really did the hard work on this stuff, and they know exactly what they're doing. They got the right team. They know the compromises they made with load sharing, and they did it intentionally, and we'll see if it works out in their favor. But I think, at least for now, at low utilization for these chargers, because it's not like there's a million Rivians going through Salida right now, or some of these California ones, it's fine. Once there's open to the public, or all Rivians are using it, I think it's going to be a bit of a struggle to have 100 kilowatt peak if you have 3 posts per cabinet.
Yeah.
Well, it could be better, but still, I guess it's more likely that if you had a Rivian at every stall, that you could have 3 pulling 100 at the same time. But I think you made a great point earlier, Kyle, that chances are vehicles might be in different spots in their charging curves and may not be pulling, which would make more power available to you.
Yeah, the whole goal of their power sharing strategy is to increase throughput. And they basically made the determination after running a whole bunch of models that, okay, do we give priority to get the first truck out as soon as possible and then get the next guy out and then the third guy? And they found out that just doing an even split worked out to just a more solid throughput, which is what ultimately is the most important for charging from a consumer standpoint.
Right.
Yeah. So without getting into the video that you're about to release, I mean, what are your thoughts on the Rivian charging? The R1T's charging. I mean, and let me back up
with the latest update.
Right, with the latest update. So, like, for us personally, we're a turn and burn. And if I'm there longer than 24 minutes, that's my cutoff.
Same here.
24 minutes, and I'm burning. I'm set. If I'm not doing 78 miles an hour, Kyle, I'm not getting to my destination, or I'm not getting to the next charger. So, like, we just did. If you didn't see, trying to think of what video it was. Anyways, Nikki and I did a trip up to Chattanooga, Tennessee from Jacksonville, Florida. Met Scott Gardner, another RS member, and his girlfriend Jen Hill, and did a camping trip. It was like 12 or 1,300 miles we did round trip, and then around town Chattanooga, did some off-roading. $28. Like, that's all the charging that we paid for, because granted, the campground was free for 2 nights, and then the hotel had free level 2 charging. But again, like, our most expensive charge was like $5.74 or something stupid like that. Like,
well, that's because you were doing it per minute, right? You had per minute chargers.
Yes, in those areas it is per minute, which I have found I will take per minute any day of the week. I just drove from Melbourne, where I grew up, so about 2.5 hours, 3 hours south of here, Melbourne, Florida, back up to Jacksonville yesterday. And I was like, oh, there's a new FPL Evolution, which Florida Power and Light, they're a big utility conglomerate here in Florida, if you're not aware. They've got 350 kilowatt chargers that have all been installed through like major areas, and one was right there in Daytona, right on Speedway Boulevard. It was per minute versus EVgo's, it was per kilowatt versus EVgo's per minute. And EVgo is another like 2 miles down the road. This one's closer to 95. Let me try this one out. To see. That charge, 57 kilowatts, cost me $22.
Well, so that's more like what we deal with in per kilowatt hour states.
Yeah, it was stupid expensive compared to EVgo. So I'll probably go back to EVgo. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, for any of this to be sustainable or feasible into the future, I think billing by kilowatt hours needed, and billing a lot more than what anyone's billing right now is also needed.
True.
So, I from a consumer standpoint, you'll find me finding cheap charging. First priority is fastest charging. Second is, okay, what's the fastest charging at the lowest cost? But it's all pretty inexpensive. However, when you start dealing with F-150 Lightning and Rivian R1T, especially towing, when you need deep charges, lots of energy, it's not cheap. It's not cheap in a gas car either. But, we're doing $30, $35 charging sessions over and over with the R1T out here, where we're 31 cents per kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, which, is fairly common. I mean, that's the Electrify America member price. But here in Texas, it's also by the minute, unless you are a certified utility. And it sounds like, Jimmy, that's exactly what you ran into down there as well. So only utilities here in Texas are allowed to bill by the unit of energy.
Right.
So all the third-party charging providers will have to bill by the minute unless that is changed.
Yep, totally agree. But these are things, it's early days. They'll all get worked out, and all of this will be figured out, I'm sure. And but I think Rivian's got the right strategy with their charging. I think doing it closed house for now is good. They'll open it up, they'll charge what they charge, and I think they're doing everything right, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so, quick question, just give us, we're almost at an hour, so give us a quick preview, because you're about to be headed back to Europe, right? Are you doing anything interesting that viewers need to be on the lookout for?
Well, for last trip, I'm going to drive the ID Buzz and some other stuff, which will be kind of cool.
Oh, that's cool.
But we actually had a flight booked for our Rivian to go with us to Europe last trip. And so we're opening an office in Munich, so I'll be spending roughly half the year or almost as much there and here. So basically, I'm just going to go get some documents signed and have out-of-spec GmbH become a thing and all this stuff. And we'll have Euro-specific channels that won't really impact our American viewership much. But one thing we really wanted to do was get the Rivian and the Model S Plaid over there. The Model S Plaid broken at the moment. And the Rivian is here. This is probably too short of a trip to send it over, but we will soon probably have it over there. And yeah, we really were planning on bringing it to Europe. It would have been really cool.
That would be awesome. And the people over there, I'm sure, would go nuts. I mean, people over here are still going nuts and seeing Rivians for the first time, but it would be next level over there.
Yeah, so we had a whole bunch of charging adapters, really sketchy stuff worked out. It was awesome. And we were going to do Nürburgring laps with it. Of course, the top speed's not very much. It's only 115, but no speed limits in the Autobahn. Everyone would be passing you with 115. We need to find a way to hack the truck to open up a little bit, because 115 is just not enough for this thing. It really needs to do 150, 155, I think, all day. The thing can handle it. See, I don't know if the motors can.
I bet the motors can. I think it's the tires that might have an issue.
But I don't think on the 22s. I think this thing's got some pretty spicy tires on it. I don't remember exactly what they're speed rated for, but the all-terrains probably couldn't.
Oh, yeah, no.
That'd be fun, though.
It would be great. Tire explodes at 150 miles an hour on the Autobahn. YouTube, that'll make a good video.
Yeah. Oh, take me back. I did the Nürburgring back in 2015. It was amazing.
Awesome. It is the best place on earth. And I think we might, you know, with us expanding into Germany, we might have a little like out-of-spec viewer vacation home thing, if you will. I sort of envision a house in Nürburgring with a couple Tesla Model 3 race cars, or, you know, kitted out, and just go out and have laps and spend a weekend out there or something, and turn it into some sort of revenue stream. I don't know. It'd be kind of fun.
That'd be amazing.
Airbnb and drive, right?
Right. It'd be like out-of-spec vacation rentals, and we just pick the best driving enthusiast areas, and you just show up, everything's prepared, and you just go have a good weekend.
That'd be amazing.
That's a crazy idea, but I think that would work.
Well, I think so too. We got a lot of other projects to work on. We just need our logos redone. This has been a topic for a year and a half, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Out of spec rentals at some point, vacation rentals.
Yep. And speaking of a driving vacation, you do still owe me a trip through the canyons in your Rivian at some point. I've got to make it up there before, when the weather will allow.
Yeah, I think end of September will probably be best if you want to start planning for that. We got a lot of stuff going on. I think you would enjoy being here around that time.
Might have to do that, especially if I have my R1S by then. Maybe we could awesome. Maybe we could do a little bit of testing, do some fun car nerd stuff.
Really would be great. And love the show, love you guys. Think the whole Rivian community has been so welcoming, so great. It's unlike any other car I've experienced. People are really going out there into nature and doing more things. So I couldn't be more thrilled to own one. And I'm looking at it right now, and it just looks awesome. It's just sitting nice and I'll show you. It's just out the window right over here in the driveway.
Yes.
Looking good.
It.
See, and Jimmy is personally a big fan of your color choice, so
yes. I'd show you mine, but mine's at the detailer's getting some, like I said earlier, getting some PPF touch-ups done right now.
So what happened with the PPF?
Just some of the edges that they couldn't wrap, or the relief cuts in some of those areas. There's just a little bit of lifting and a little bit of just unfortunately with white, it shows all the dirt that gets up underneath any of those edges, or it gets stuck along those edges.
Yep. That's the problem with PPF. There's a lot of benefits, but there's a lot of problems too. We have a new out-of-spec detailing channel launching in the coming weeks. that will go
Oh, my.
into a lot of these with testing. From the guy who did my Model S Plaid full detail, he did a full Rivian paint evaluation. His name is Colton at Clear Detailing.
That was a good video. We enjoyed that. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's been great. I love, you know, a lot of people don't know. A lot of people learned very quickly on Rivian Stories what a love bug was after I talked about them. And I love the PPF. I love ceramic. It just makes cleaning up everything 10 times easier than it's ever been in any vehicle, especially being in Florida.
Yes.
I wouldn't change a thing. Honestly, it's those little things. Again, it's a small price. It wasn't a small price to pay, but those the little imperfections in some of the edges, it's not terrible. You just got to stay on top of it.
Yep, you just got to keep resealing things like this over time. But again, the point of PPF is not to enhance the look of the car; it's purely to protect it, and it's doing its job. And so it's a sacrificial layer. But if you have a show car, if you want something to show paint depth, you don't use PPF for that. But that's why everything has its purpose. So I think definitely considering a story, maybe doing this $4,500 XPEL situation and covering that. I think it'd be kind of cool to see the truck matte white and then wrapping over that with something kind of interesting. I don't know, but we don't really need it for the protection.
Jimmy's is stealth white, so we'll have to have him send you some pictures, and it does look great. I would say it's less noticeable than the satin, the matte finish on darker colors, but what you need to do is you need to get the vinyl wrap on first and then go matte PPF over it. And
that could be interesting.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're going to vinyl wrap, actually you should put PPF over the vinyl wrap, because the vinyl wrap is not nearly as tough and will get damaged, where if you vinyl wrap first and then PPF over it, whether it's gloss or whether it's the stealth or satin wraps, that's the move.
Yeah, well, we have options. My goal is not to protect the truck. Alyssa backed it into a fence last week, and it's got some scratches in the back. So, these things happen. So, I was going to say I parked next to a matte green, launch green Rivian R1T this past week at a little event I was at, and it turned out to be a viewer. And his truck looked so freaking good. He had blacked out some of the stuff, and it was an awesome looking rig. But he spent $8,000 on that matte wrap. This is pretty much half the price. And so I thought the video idea, I just want to do this for content. I thought it'd be cool to send the Rivian, film the process of it getting wrapped for the detailing channel, cover that whole story for prospective owners, and then compare this quality to the $8,000 wrap that I thought was perfect. That this guy had on his truck, and see, where did the money go anywhere useful, basically.
Yeah. No, that'd be interesting content for a lot of people, I think.
Yep. Well, looking forward to seeing what we got to do with this truck. We got to get it fixed, and then we got to upgrade it. So, on the lookout for more stuff for it.
Outstanding. Well, cool. Well, Kyle, thanks again for joining us. We'll obviously be following your Rivian content, and I watch a lot of the other stuff too. So keep doing what you're doing. I know that a lot of our community, and obviously at least 100,000 others, really enjoy your content. So keep up the good work, and let's stay in touch, man.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me on. Always cool. I don't think I've been on the show since I got my truck, so it's been cool to tell you a little bit about my ownership experience, and just so thrilled every time I get back in it. It's really a wonderful machine.
All right, folks, that's it for this one. Again, catch the entire episode on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or your favorite podcast app. Until the next video, we'll be hanging out at rivianstories.com, so we hope to see you there.